What's up, beautiful? Welcome back to Sales Remastered. Today's Wednesday, the end of January. It is January 31st, and in this episode, I'm just going to talk about a couple of resources that you can check out yourself on your free time if you're into that kind of thing. And it has to do with books, audiobooks, pieces of information that I found helpful and useful being in my industry, being in sales just in particular. And as far back as I can remember, one of my very first sales books, my very first book that I've ever got into sales or with regards to sales was a book that was recommended by, one of my earlier mentors as a telemarketer. And this is when I was working as a telemarketer for a mortgage company called Town & Country Credit. It was a subsidiary of AmeriQuest, and essentially one of the largest subprime lenders in the nation. And at this time, I was only about 20 years old, maybe about 21, so it was about early 2000s. And one of the books that I was recommended was called The Closers. The Closer. And it was actually called The Closer's Bible. And it was written by Ben Gay III. How could you forget that name, right? Ben Gay III. So look it up. It's called The Closers. I'll try to remember to leave a link under this video so that way you have direct access to it. But check that book out. The reason why I was so fascinated with this book is because not only was it my first actual sales book, and it was on a topic that I really wanted to learn about, because I was able to see the upside in learning about that skill, which was basically selling and persuasion and influencing, right? And what fascinated me about this book was the story that it put into, and it was a story about a salesman who came on and he was selling timeshares. I believe it was timeshares on the property. It's been about 15 years since I read the book, but the reason why I thought about it is because it introduced me into this thing called NLP, and I didn't know it at the time. As a matter of fact, I didn't hear about that phrase NLP, which refers to Neuro-linguistic Programming. I didn't hear about that again until maybe a good 10 years later. And the reason why The Closer was what introduced me to this is because there was a section of that book, besides the story is great, by the way, but there's a section of the book that actually told you how to sell a person based on their work, like their line of work. And it broke down all these different type of job titles and the type of mindset that they had, meaning the type of way that they consume information. And it told you, like, for example, like if you were dealing with, let's say a nurse, right? Like a nurse or a medical care person, then it's helpful to use a specific strategy. Like you use certain words within your scripting that is in line with what they relate to, how they perceive information and how they consume it. And I thought that was fascinating to me because it was far different from what everyone else was doing, who just wanted to, get the social security number, get the full application and move on. It actually taught you how certain mindsets worked. And I always thought that was fascinating because it was a science of selling. It was not selling. It wasn't your traditional, like, hey, you just got to, smile and dial. It's a numbers game. And deep down inside, I was always kind of the one who tried to figure out a hack, right? Like, how can I hack this system? How can I make that particular system my own? And then maximize on the potential of that system and continue refining it, continue refining it. Because anything you do throughout your day, it's a system, from getting up to getting ready to, whether how you get dressed, how you pick your clothes, to when you get into work, how you plan your day, how you call out your leads, all the way to when you get home, how you get undressed, how you get ready to, unplug. Everything is a specific process. And we're given an opportunity every single day to refine this process. And where you hit stagnancy, I hope that's a word. When you hit kind of just settlement, like you're just unmotivated, is because your process has become so dull and kind of repetitive that there's nothing new to look forward to. And I think that has to do a lot with us going through the same cycle every day. And we get to a point where we go on autopilot. And autopilot meaning it's muscle memory. It's kind of like you're just going through the phases, and instead of making moves or making things happen to you, and so you're not necessarily in full control. And I was always conscious about that. And this book basically, introduced me to sales books. Now, I personally, I'm not sure if this applies to you, but I personally don't have the patience, call it ADD, call it impatience, whatever. But I don't necessarily have the kind of just the focus to sit there and read a book. Like, even if I'm really into it, and now as I'm more mature, now that I'm, if I'm into a topic, I can actually absorb it now. I just need to find the time and the discipline to read it. But still, I catch myself reading a page, and then kind of the anxiety kicks in. I'm like, wait, I just lost myself. So then I got to go back 3 pages, read that 3 pages. And while I'm reading the 3 pages, I'm still digesting thoughts in my head. And so it's like I'm not even absorbing the information. And so I prefer audiobooks. And, ever since I got into this whole fascination of NLP and the science of selling and persuasion, I picked up other books, but that's one book that I would recommend. It's an old school favorite, and it really just breaks down the bare essentials of selling. And speaking of books, my man Gary V came out with this book. It actually released today. I got it in the mail last night, and immediately, it's like when you're a kid and you got that new comic book, or you got that new issue of Game Pro, you got that new, that new release of Highlights, which was that little kind of free magazine you would get in the mail, and had all kinds of different puzzles and cool things that you'd be able to do as a kid. And it was free, right? And so sometimes when you saw that in the mail, you get excited. You'd be like, ooh, I got one of these. And it was just cool. And so it reminded me a lot of that, because I've had a chance to listen to the audiobooks that Gary Vaynerchuk has released. The only audiobook he didn't make as of yet was for both this book, Crushing It, and Jab, Jab, Right Hook, which Jab, Jab, Right Hook is a great book. If you're in sales, or if you're in branding, or you someday hope to create maybe a side business or some sort of other stream of income, I think it's a great book. It applies to everything today with regards to marketing. If you're a good salesman, then all you really need to do is improve your marketing, and you can create your own funnel. You now have the tools to create your own little economy, if you will. Anyway, that book led me down this path where I just started becoming, very fascinated with just the science of selling. And like I had mentioned, I didn't hear about NLP, which was basically the thesis of what fascinated me about the book, about learning how people think and how they make decisions, up to about maybe 10 years later, when I actually heard of NLP from my cousin, introduced me to somebody named Darren Brown. And Darren Brown's on YouTube. Again, I'll try to leave the link below this video. But Darren Brown, D-A-R-R-E-N, and just like the color brown, B-R-O-W-N. And if you search his name on YouTube and put BMX, like the bike, BMX, that was the very first experience that I had of the breakdown of Nuero-linguistic Programming. And the reason why that fascinated me is because, if you watch the video, there's specific wordplay that Darren Brown used that altered the way the recipient was receiving the message. And Darren Brown is I think he's famous for being a psychologist. Like, he's a kind of like a mind game freak, right? And he's very, very, or he was popular. Last time I saw the video, he was pretty popular. He had a TV show in the UK, and it had to do with like going up to random people and trying to put them under hypnosis. And NLP in itself, in that video, you're going to see how he kind of controls the outcome through the wording and through kind of visual, audio, and kinesthetic ways of communicating a message. And then it just got deeper from that. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. It's like learning a new game. You know what I mean? And it, I think why it helped me out a great deal was because I looked at it as a game now. I looked at it not as a grind, not as a as a job where I had to convince somebody what's good for them. I actually looked at it as, oh man, I got to try this out, dude. Let me have fun with this. Let me see if it works. And if it does, then I'm just, like I mentioned, you just got to keep refining it, right? And so if you go down this particular path, or you go down this, this kind of sequence of scripting, then you'll get this result. If you go down this path, then you'll get that result. And then you start, getting creative and start blending the paths just so you can manipulate the result. And so I was fascinated about that. Something I really got into. And for me, it was, school didn't really excite me. Like, there was no topic in school that excited me. The philosophy, understanding how people think, how people act, the way that some of us can kind of reframe our mindset, can reprogram our mindset, and the law of attraction, and certain things that I was just very in tune with. And that happens to be one of the subjects. So I invite you, check out that book. It's called The Closer. It's called the Sales Closer's Bible or something like that. It's Ben Gay III. Again, I'll look up a link when I upload this video, and I'll try to remember, leave it at the bottom of these notes. And if you haven't checked out Gary Vaynerchuk yet, go check out his content. You can just on YouTube or literally anywhere, just search Gary V, Garyvee. Of course, his name is Gary Vaynerchuk, but he's known as Gary V. And just like that book kind of got me fascinated with the science of selling, Gary got me fascinated with the science of marketing, like how we're able to use the tools today to create and establish a brand. And you see me doing this right here, right now with Sales Remastered. And, Gary helped me out a lot with regards to developing the mindset, to develop the courage to step out of my comfort zone and do things that were different than the norm, in order to help create and establish a legacy or some sort of digital footprint that shows what kind of value you have to bring to the market. And so that's what I hope to do here at Sales Remastered. As this brand develops and as it improves over time, do I know where it's going to go? I have no clue. But what I do know is that it does play a role within life. Like, videos are just this is where it's headed, and then it's going to head towards voice. And if we're still stuck doing the old methods, then we're going to be stuck receiving the old results. And as this world evolves and technology kind of improves, you have to be at the front line in order to maximize its potential and invest in yourself for the return. And so anyway, get a gander at their material, get a gander at that content, and leave a comment below. What's your favorite sales book? What's a book that really put things in perspective and gave you that aha moment, gave you that kind of enthusiasm, that energy that you were anxious to go and try, like go and try in the field, go and execute that idea or that thesis or that strategy into your day-to-day regimen? What book gave you a great impact, or what book set you on a path where you just went down a rabbit hole of just all this good information, and it naturally helped you improve with your day-to-day hustle? Leave your comments below, like, share, comment, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.